selection. I wonder if you also feel it, that we are now doing more interesting perhaps, but also more difficult work. With difficult, I mean there's a lot of information that I have studied that I now need to incorporate in my answers. When you see an answer, grade 12, higher level, means go into what you know. So it is important to work back and refer in your answers to what you know about this topic. The first question, define the term gene. Yes, gene was long ago, 2 chapters or what ago. But still, we are working with genes because the genotype need to change during natural selection. And when the genotype change, the phenotype will also change. And then there is some changes in the organism which can help the organism to adapt. Please remember, it's if one organism adapts, we cannot say it is evolution or evolution is on its way, or we cannot say that the whole population will survive. So just a little hint here which I want to talk about, and that is, when we talk about natural selection, it is about the population. Yes, it starts with a few individuals, but in order to have this carried onwards, it needs to change the population. That is one important thing. And the second word that I want to use here is the word competition. The word competition is one that eventually, competition is eventually going to determine if a population can survive in an environment. So competition refers to, can you outcompete either with other organisms living with you in the same area, compete for water, safe place to stay, to hide, and with pairing mate. And those that can find a pairing mate and transfer the healthy gene, in the case of sickle cell anemia, onto their offspring will eventually cause the natural selection of specific allows for the population to survive. I hope you understand that. First question, define the term gene, a length of DNA or a part of a chromosome, or a length of DNA on the chromosome which carries the genetic code for particular characteristics of an organism. A gene mutation occurs when part of the DNA on a single chromosome is changed. State 2 factors. We call the factors mutagens that may increase the rate of mutation. A factor that may increase the rate of gene mutation is a mutagen. We have the UV rays from the sun. We have X-rays or gamma rays. Also chemicals like tar in cigarettes would have been the correct answer. Sickle cell anemia is caused by a gene mutation. Gene, and just a bit of revision here, a gene is a specific sequence of nitrogenous bases on the DNA, you remember? And if there is a problem with the copying of this nitrogenous bases, and this sequence now change, what will change? The protein will change, and that is exactly what's happening here. The red blood cells from a healthy person and one from sickle cell anemia. So, we know proteins cause structure, and here we can see this structure change because the hemoglobin, and is hemoglobin a protein? Yes, it is one of those globular proteins. No? Globular proteins. Yes, and it has a quaternary structure due to the fact that it is different polypeptides that forms. Aha, lots of revision. Can you see how far we go back to proteins? And now the question is, refer to both these figures. You have to use the words that we see there and use them in your answer. So actually the answer has been given to you. Just apply that. We have a smaller surface area for hemoglobin due to the fact that the hemoglobin is now crescent shape and not bicconcave anymore. Less oxygen transported because of the smaller surface area. Blocking of the capillaries due to the shape and the stickiness. It slows down or reduces or stops oxygen transport. Please use both figures and refer to the terms used in the figures. The medical condition, sickle cell anemia, is widely distributed in Africa, parts of Asia and the Americas. People with sickle cell anemia have red blood cells with an abnormal form of hemoglobin. The genes for hemoglobin exist in two forms, the normal and the sickle cell with the S. When both these two are in capital letters, we know that they can be codominant. So both can exert their properties or features. Do you agree on that one? Good. So complete the genetic diagram below to show how two people who are heterozygous for this gene may have a child who has sickle cell anemia. Use the symbols HN and HS in your answer. We start with normal, but they refer to us that it is heterozygous. Write the genotype, and the genotype looks like this. Now I have to show the gametes. The gametes will look like this. Now, good. So H, S, H, N. H, S, H, N. Fertilization, if this sperm fertilize this egg cell, or this sperm fertilize that egg cell, or we can have this sperm fertilize that egg cell or that one. It will give us now the following genotypes: H, S, H, S. it will give us HS, HN. It will give us HN, HS, and lastly HN, HN. And now we can write down the phenotypes, but here we have the sickle cell anemia, which was the question. The question was, show that a parent, two normal parents, but they are heterozygous, can have an offspring with sickle cell anemia. We will get back to this one. So let's quickly look at the ratio, then you will understand a later question. Our ratio for normal to sickle cell will be 1 normal, 1 sickle cell. You agree? But normal to sickle cell to, let's say rather normal to carrier, normal to a carrier to a sickle cell. Because we are working with 3 different types here, it will give us 1 normal, 2 carriers, 1 sickle cell. So if we will look at our survival rate in a malaria area, now, who has the best chance to survive? This one has the best chance to survive. So 2 out of 4, or a ratio of 50% has a chance to survive. Now, that is an important thing to show how the heterozygous form helps with survival. Survival means having the opportunity to reproduce, and that make the population to grow. The normal ones in this case, unfortunately, have a chance to suffer from malaria, and therefore they have a higher risk to die due to malaria. But those with the sickle cell, in this case, those with the sickle cell, unfortunately, due to their inability to have enough oxygen, they die due to the sickle cell anemia. You agree? So, that is how this situation improves a population's survival fitness. You know, how they can fit in their environment, how fit they are. The fittest will survive. How do they fit into their environment? The effects of sickle cell anemia, there is a website where you can check. Red cells become sickle-shaped or distorted. Please do not use the word abnormal. Refer to the facts. They use the word abnormal earlier in the question because they want you to see what is the abnormality. Okay. In areas of low oxygen concentrations in the tissue, there will be fewer, less elastic, less flexible, short-lived red blood cells. This causes a decrease so that there's less hemoglobin. So there's a less efficient transporting of oxygen. We cannot say there are no oxygen, but there can be less respiration. Please don't say there's no respiration. No. Less energy due to respiration, less energy, and energy is respiration. release. Energy released. Important. So fatigue, less active, breathless. The capillaries are blocked. That cause a lot of pain. Death of tissue linked to the blood supply. And then slow or poor growth, susceptible to infections because there's no energy to fight reactions, and that may lead to a reduced lifespan. That is a lot of more than 4 marks, but that is all the possibilities. Now, then we have a map, and on this map we see sickle cell allows really overlap or is the same area as where we find the malaria. You see? And they want us to use the correct words to explain that. I know that here inside you know exactly what to say, but remember grade 12. Higher level means you have the ability to use the correct terms, definitions. Now, that is why you need to repeat so many times. So you can start with the idea that areas with high percentage of sickle cell allele are places with malaria. State that. State what you see on the map. Do not think that you just have to skip that fact. That is a fact. Now we start with, if you have the homozygous recessive, you have a reduced lifespan, so they will die. If you are homozygous with the dominant features, you are susceptible to malaria. So you will get easily malaria. If you are then heterozygous carrier, it means you have the allele, but you are not affected to malaria. Please do not refer here to immunity. That will be the wrong words. So the carrier will survive and have children. But the other 2 alleles do not have children or have a smaller chance to have children. And now that gives the chance, the probability to pass on the sickle cell allele. And here we are back at what we said in the previous slide. 1/4 of a chance to have this, 1/4 of a chance to have be normal, 1/4 of a chance to have the sickle cell allele. But if 2 heterozygous people are having children, there's a 50% or a 50% chance to have the advantage to be resistant to malaria. And that is what eventually brings the success to this allele so that people can carry it on. It's a natural selection process because they are now fit enough to outcompete other that has malaria or that has the allele, the homozygous dominant allele, and therefore they will survive. Now, the fittest will survive. Sickle cell anemia is an example of variation, and it's discontinuous form. Why? Discontinuous, we said, has distinct groups. So you either have sickle cell anemia or you do not have it. Now, you show the signs of the disease or you do not. So we are here referring to the phenotype. as a genotype change, it will also change the phenotype. So we have people with sickle cell anemia, or we do not. There will be no in-betweens, no intermediates. If we draw this on a graph, what will the graph tells us? With a ruler, we will draw an X and a Y axis. You agree? And here we will have the alleles, and here we will have the number of people, and we will make, with a ruler, we will make columns with the same width, yes, and the same spaces there in between, the same spaces in between, important, nah. And here we will have exactly the same distances, 10, 20, 30, and that is a bar graph for discontinuous variation. Excellent, grade 12. There you have accomplished, and now you know a very difficult answer.
In a time of uncertainty, false news, and fear, learn on. While the world scrambles to make new sense, while the experts turn around in circles, trying to find their way back to tomorrow, learn on. When classrooms become empty cathedrals and the trees start to bear answers, learn on. Learn on. Until every parent is a teacher and every teacher is a mentor. Learn on until you cross the boundaries of your mind, until you grow eyes and sprout wings. My friend, learn on. On sidewalks, on the floor, at the neighbors, in the market, in hallways, in churches, under trees, at kitchen tables, in riverbeds. Learning doesn't only happen between four walls. Learning happens in the small space of your enormous, beautiful mind. Start where you are. Use what you have. Learn on one. Invite learning in.
Can lead to. We are going to look at natural selection. And if you look at the picture, you see a poor little giraffe that cannot reach the branches to have something to eat. So, the one with the long neck could reach. This one with the short neck cannot reach. And in simple terms, we say that this is how what they inherited from the ancestors. The one inherited a gene for a longer neck. The other one did not. And now, the short neck one get less and less food, especially during drier times, where all the animals eat at the same height. And only those that can reach the top branches have something to eat. So we say, variation provide better chances to survival for certain genetic types, for certain genotypes, those with the gene for long necks. So that means with that gene of having a longer neck inherited from your ancestors, you have a better chance to survive. If you can eat, you become mature. Eventually you are sexually mature and you can breed. If you cannot eat, you cannot breed, you do not have offspring. But that short necks is also not transferred to any other giraffes. But those with the longer necks, they meet pairing mates, they reproduce, and which gene will be moving on, will be inherited in that species? The gene for the longer neck. So, they will inherit the favorable characteristic and they will be better adapted. And that means they were selected by the features of the environment, by nature. And they will survive and they will reproduce. And that is where they get the term for natural selection. Selected by the nature, by the conditions in the environment. But actually, it was due to the fact that they inherit the specific gene that bring them to have a specific phenotype to reach the higher branches with the leaves that can still be eaten and provide nutrition. Natural selection can therefore lead to evolution. How? Because if this change is over million of years, and it leads to that those two species that once came from the same ancestor cannot breed anymore, we have a new species. So evolution is when we have a change in the genetic material over many years, it is inherited from a common ancestor, and the responses to the environment cause change that now leads to the formation of a new species that is evolution. And to tell you a little story to understand that,